Welcome, team. Today I'm very excited because I have a very good friend of mine, but also the ultimate professional who, dare I say, your stocks have never been higher at the moment, Matt Cameron. Now, Matt Cameron is the CEO of the Penrith Panthers, who have just, as the time of recording, have achieved their three-peat, 3 grand final wins in a row. It's their 4th grand final in a row, 3 grand final wins in a row. So it's fair to say they're the best team of this generation, and you're the CEO. And you never get on camera. So this is exclusive to all your viewers out there. This is so exclusive. Do not turn away. Seriously, Matty, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Hayden. I look after rugby league, obviously.
Yeah.
Brian looks after the group. I look after rugby league.
Yeah. And you know what? Viewers and listeners on the Audible and the Apple Podcast, Spotify, however you're listening, you've already heard straight away how humble you are. Like the first thing you wanted to do was put credit to someone else. I've always known you like this, and I've always known you to stay behind the scenes. So to actually get you in this chair now is an exclusive.
Thank you.
Am I right?
Yes.
Why do you
it's taken a while to get here, but
why do you like staying behind the scenes?
There's a show called The West Wing.
Right.
And it's a political drama that was in the late 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember when they did it. Martin Sheen's in it. And there's a scene in it, and he has a guy who's like his 2IC to the president. And there's this really good scene in it where someone says, his name's Leo, I think, Leo McGarry, and he says, what do you do for the president? And he said, I'm the guy that helps the guy get the job done. Right. And that's been my mentality my whole time, whether it be not so much school teaching because you're teaching a group of kids, but definitely when I went into rugby league, whether it be coaching or administration pathways, what I do now. I feel like I've always, obviously, our history together at Parramatta Eels, like I was assistant coach there, so I felt in that capacity I was the guy that helps the guy get the job done.
Yeah.
Gets the head coach get the job done, whether that be Brian, Daniel, Steve, Brad, like whoever it was at that point in time. I've come to Penrith 10 years ago now, almost. I wasn't there the first time, and I felt like when I came in, it was the same. It was the same experience. Like I've never been the guy. I've never tried to be the guy. I've always been very happy just being the guy that helps the guy get the job done. So.
I love the way you just put that because we dig deep in, like I've done it with my own philosophy and how I work, and usually, and I've done it with a lot of players, and you dig back to what their influences were, and sometimes the influences are people that have helped them along the way, how they grew up, people they admire or follow from a distance, or even something a school teacher taught them, or even a line from a movie. Like that influence in you, I now look back at all the times I've had with you and I see that. And now you are the guy, but also you're still just the guy helping the club as a whole.
Yeah, that's the role.
You still have, if I could say why I think you're a good CEO, without embarrassing you sitting here, I've worked at a lot of different clubs, as you know, and I've seen a lot of different CEOs. I think the reason you are so good is because of that philosophy of you're always thinking, how can I help someone else? And I also think you're a CEO of a rugby league club. I also think your time as a coach, which we have to go back on for sure, and a teacher, your time as a coach is priceless now to be a CEO.
Yeah, definitely.
The reason I say that, because people have asked me about you before this show, which is why I've asked to get you on. My belief, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, your background as being that guy helping the head coach in whatever age group. I mean, you've head coached yourself at different stages. But now you are a CEO who totally understands what the football department need, what the head coach needs, what the physical staff need, what the medical staff need, what the players need. Like you totally get the football side. Now, there's some other CEOs who are great CEOs in their own way. Like every club CEO has their own little niche somewhere. Like the club that I'm about to work for this season, as you know, they've got a very good CEO who's had great success as well, and his niche is probably different to your niche. So everyone's got their own. But if I could say what I believe makes you such a great CEO is that you totally get that your job is to help that football department. And now I dare say there's a lot of other areas. Am I right?
Yeah, there is, but you hit the nail on the head. Like it's like our core business is rugby league.
Yeah.
So I feel everything I do, and I feel like my role as in my position, I am a support function within the business.
Yeah.
And that's the way I look at it. Even as late as yesterday, we're doing a little bit of an internal restructure in the football department in senior management more than anything else. And, we're trying to represent it in the classic org chart, and the classic org chart has the person at the top and then everyone sits underneath and people sit under those. And we've tried to come up with something that represents how the business works, not necessarily just a top to bottom org chart,
Yeah.
And I've got a friend who's a teacher at a very prestigious GPS school here in Sydney, and he talks about in their business they've got people that work in the business and they've got people that work on the business. And the teachers are the teachers and the senior leadership team within the school, like within subject areas. They're working in the business. And him in his role, he feels he works on the business. He works around it. He's a support function to it. And in this org chart that we're playing with on my whiteboard in my office at the moment, like I'm not on it. Like I don't exist on it. There's coaching and there's there's coaching. There's operations. There's finance. There's our foundation work. I'm not on it. No, I'm working on the business. I'm working around it. There to support everyone else. So,
wow, that's a very interesting way to put it, because you have had many roles in the business.
correct. Yep.
And now you see yourself working on the business. And
It's a different way of looking at it.
And your philosophy is be the guy that helps that guy. It's just on a bigger scale now. Be the guy that helps this club, this organisation.
Sure. Yep.
And you still, because of your coaching knowledge, you're still definitely the guy that helps that coach. I can see that from afar.
Yeah, and you've been in our facility. I think I'm really fortunate where my office is located. I look out onto the training field. So depending on how busy my day is, at times I can see them training, in particular the injured guys, because they train in the bottom corner right near my window, So I feel like I'm very fortunate that I understand the rugby league side of it, as you explained. But I can also look out the window and sort of go, why has that guy got a bib on? Why is he over there in that group? Or, where's so-and-so? Or, so I feel like my background in the coaching side of it, not so much the performance side of it, but definitely the coaching side of it, gives me a massive advantage in that space. So.
Well, definitely, because you also, to help a head coach, you need to also keep the rest of the staff happy. And you have been one of those staff members before. You know what everyone needs.
Yep.
It's a niche as a CEO that you can't buy that time you've had.
No, I'm very fortunate. And you touched on it earlier, like if you look across, we'll use the NRL as an example. There's a lot of CEOs out there, as you said, that do great work. A lot of them probably have a much greater, they come from the commercial side of the business.
Yes.
And that's not me. And I'm incredibly reliant on a very small leadership team that I've got, that I'm not the smartest bloke in the room. When it comes to the commercial stuff, I've got a great GM of commercial who I go to and, Jeremy, what's your thoughts on this,
Yes.
So I feel like, of the 17 clubs, I'm definitely, at one end of the spectrum in respect that I've come from the coaching side of it and, and at a decent level as well, involved with NRL. So you're right. I feel like I know what the football department is looking for, what they need, and then it's just the balancing act as to, can we get it done? So, and we often do.
Yeah, well, I might stay here for just a second before we go back to your whole journey and I might share with the listeners our connection. They should feel already how connected we are. Okay.
20 years? 25 years?
25 years ago we worked together. And, well, I'm going there now. Let's just go there. So to the listeners, Matt Cameron and I worked together at the Parramatta Eels, heavily influenced by Brian Smith.
Correct.
At the time, CEO, and you talk about CEOs in rugby league, Dennis Fitzgerald, he lasted 30 years, mate. If you're no good in rugby league, you are out. Whether you're a player, administrator, coach, trainer, whoever, if you're no good, within 2 years you're gone.
It can be a vicious business.
It's ruthless. Mate, Dennis Fitzgerald lasted 30 years while we were there.
Yeah.
So Brian Smith heavily influenced us and the whole feel of the place. Like Kay Fitzhenry, we called Arnie Kay. She was like the godmother of the club. Like I'm now at the Sydney Roosters and I absolutely love. So Trent Robinson was a player we had back then. He's now the head coach, obviously. I love that he still has an Arnie Kay in the building. He has an Arnie Kath in the building, Kath King. And their leadership, I look at your club now, the leadership of the club from Brian and yourself, and you look at a powerhouse like the Roosters the same. You know, before you guys just did a three-peat, they did a back-to-back. You know, so in this generation, we're talking about the two best clubs that I've been privileged to work in both. You hired me at Penrith Panthers, and which I'm totally grateful for. Those 3 years at the Panthers were a great time for me. But I look at the influence even now at the Roosters, the influence of Brian Smith even still exists in Trent Robinson. The leadership of Nick Politis, I could write stuff about in a leadership book. I go and do talks now to businesses and I tell stories about Roosters leadership and Panthers leadership. I tell stories about you. I tell stories about Ivan. I should be paying you commission.
Please do. Please do.
But so back to the listeners, this journey goes, we then work together on the NRL staff of some great seasons, like the 07 season. We had one game off a grand final with Michael Hagan. We had the 09 season together with Daniel Anderson, who's now at the Roosters.
Yep.
That season, wow. What's your memories of that season? Let's just stick here for a second. 2009, we lose the grand final to Melbourne Storm.
Yes.
But what a year.
Yeah, and it's, I suppose, I look at that 09 team, not necessarily the game, but I look at that 09 team and, a lot of what the Eels were built on at that point in time was juniors. Like it was a strong junior base. And then if you look at that squad, Felipe Mateo, Daniel Mortimer, like a lot of those players, local juniors made their debut at the club, reached the dizzy heights of a premiership game, but weren't good enough on the day. And I must admit, a lot of my learnings and a lot of the things that I've done at the Panthers are a reflection of that time. Our Pathways program that we've put in place there. I look at that 03 team that ran out a couple of weeks ago. 12 of the 13 starters made their debut at the club. I think at one point in time there was 22 of the 28 in the squad were local juniors, or what we class as locally developed juniors, such as Dylan Edwards that came to us.
In the 23 team?
In the 22 team.
22 team.
The 23 team. The starting grand final team had 12 of the 13 players had made their debut at the club. So it was heavily built and heavily focused on, a really strong junior base that we worked really hard to develop them into first grade players and then keeping them and letting them flourish. So.
Do you mentioned the systems out there at Parramatta? So I recently did an episode with Brian Smith. Did you listen to it?
I did.
You
I
did?
listened to it last Saturday morning, yes.
Oh, there you go.
I actually texted Brian off the back of it. Got into
nice.
a little bit of a back and forth with him, which was good. I haven't spoken to him for a little while. So,
well, I think when I'm with him, I just have this grateful feeling of if he never offered me a job when he did, way back then, like we wouldn't have done what we've done together.
No, you're right.
And
you're
probably
right.
the same for you. So I have this grateful feeling when I'm with him. I think he gets a little glow when I tell him Matt Cameron's still doing some stuff that he taught us.
Grip, carry, catch, pass,
I think
tackle tech.
Yeah, I think he's still. For him to know he's had an influence on this absolute powerhouse that Penrith now is.
Yeah, and that was part of the text on Saturday morning.
Oh, really?
That I sent to him.
Because when you think back, those years at Parramatta, there was 9 years. I don't even know if this award still exists, but
Club championship.
Club championship. The Eels won the club championship 9 years in a row, which for the listeners that don't understand, that's from juniors all the way up. And
with the exception of first grade.
With the exception of first grade. And to do that and then put systems in place that I know, but people wouldn't know, there's definitely a piece of that you brought out here. You've been out here 10 years and you can see what's happened.
Yeah, and we've been really fortunate that we've had a couple of people value add to that along the way.
For sure.
Know? So obviously, Ivan is the current head coach, and we've had some great staff that have come through the place in the last 10 years. But yeah, definitely, that's that pathways model that started at Penrith 10 years ago now, 2012, 2013. Had its foundations all the way back there. So,
okay, mate, the influence you said about that line in the movie, I want to get back to even more influences because I remember you even gave me a Pete Carroll book.
Yep.
And
Win Forever.
So for the listeners there, I often do some book recommendations. Win Forever, Pete Carroll. Since then, I've dug deep into Pete Carroll and dug deep into Michael Gervais, a sports psychologist that works with him, and then
I think I might have paid for some of those invoices, Hayden.
And actually, like some of the courses you paid for the invoices, so and study tours and whatever. But isn't it amazing that back then you were planting seeds with me about Pete Carroll and you're giving me a book, and we were like, both of us are into that type of stuff. And then all these years later, I'm still digging deep, and those influences have then influenced people I work with. And I even asked you to pay some invoices.
But even you touch on the Pete Carroll thing, like, the Seahawks won again yesterday. And I suppose my interest in Pete Carroll stems from when he coached at USC. And for those people who don't know, like, he was an NFL coach, had 2 reasonably unsuccessful stints at 2 NFL clubs, got sacked and sat down and basically said he didn't know what he stood for. He didn't know, like, he'd never articulated what he wanted to actually achieve. Yeah. So he spent a period of time working on it, and he came up with, this was his belief system and, his theories about NFL football. And he said, the next job I get, I'm going to, this is what I stand for and this is what I'm going to coach.
Yeah.
He got the job at University of Southern California, and I think he was there 10 years. They had a 95-7 record.
Yeah.
They went on to the NFL, won a Super Bowl, lost a Super Bowl. I think with yesterday's win, they're either 5-1 or 6-1. I can't remember where they're at the moment. So, and he'd be the oldest coach in the NFL at the moment. He's 72, 73 years old.
Wow.
And when you watch them train, like if you see YouTube clips or Instagram, he looks like a 22-year-old, not a 72-year-old. So
I want to meet him. Pete Carroll, if you're listening. You're welcome on the show, by the way, Pete. I want to meet him. And you know why?
Zero met him.
Did he?
Actually, I'll tell a lie. Zero had a visit organised at the Seahawks.
Yeah.
And the day that he flew in was the day that Paul Allen passed away, the owner.
Okay.
So he visited the facility and he had a couple of things organised. He met a few people, but
right.
I think he'd had half an hour organised with Pete Carroll, but the owner had passed away that day that he was in Seattle. So.
Right. Well, we did an episode with Nathan Cleary on here after the 2020 season, so before any of these premierships.
Yep.
And it's the best interview and I'm not being biased, obviously, because I was working with him day to day. It was an easy chat. But if people want to go back and listen, some of the stuff Nathan says that day is priceless, and it will never age. The episode will be played in 20 years' time, but it's interesting when you listen back, because it was before the premierships. There was a moment in there we talked about fear of people's opinions and how that was paralysing him in 2019. And that term, fear of people's opinion, I got from Michael Gervais, who I only got led to because of your guidance around Pete Carroll. And then Nathan did a lot of work and put some tools in place to handle that and deal with that. Now, talk about books. There's a book coming out November this year, only a couple of weeks after we're recording, and it's Michael Gervais' book on fear of people's opinions.
Oh.
So for all the listeners out there, there's a lot that are constant learners. They're in this coaching space or leadership space. It's a book. I haven't even read it yet, but I'm highly recommending it. So give us another book. You're a big reader. Give us another book.
I'm reading 11 Rings, Phil Jackson, at the moment.
Yeah.
I thought I'm only a little bit into it, but it's interesting. I'm only just his history in the game. He hasn't got to the coaching part of it yet. So
Okay.
it's finding time to read at the moment is the difficult thing. But I've actually without going too deep, we've downsized at home, so all my books at home are actually in my office at work at the moment.
Are
so
they?
They've put it up on the bookshelf, and I've actually said to the staff, if anyone wants one, just knock yourself out and take it, and just make sure it comes back. So
You just mentioned your office.
yes,
Can I paint a picture to the listeners here? I wish I could show that you are the most organised person I've ever had.
there's a term for that.
What is that called? OCD?
I think it might be. Yeah.
Okay. Because
So would you class that the curtains have all got to be at the same height as falling into? Yeah.
see, I don't look at that.
So I do every day.
I love, I remember coming to visit you when you first came out to Penrith. What was your first role at Penrith?
High performance manager, but it was really coaching, not physical performance. It was coaching performance.
Right. I remember coming out to your office and you'd sit there and you'd press a button and a visual show of a camera you had set up to watch the juniors the night before, and you had systems in place that just blew my mind, but your organisation of it was crazy. And since then, when we worked together at the Panthers, I love coming in your office as the CEO now or the GM of footy at one stage, and I could just sit there and read your whiteboard all day, or sometimes you have a lock on it and you'd open it up because there's top secret stuff on there, like salary cap stuff or
team list for the next 5 years.
Team list for the next 5 years. We should go there. You know the kids coming through in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
6, 7 years' time. It used to blow my mind. And you could move all these players, and it used to blow my mind how organised you are.
So you touched on it before, that phrase I used before about the guy helping the guy. I feel my job in the business is, Ivan's job is to win tomorrow.
Yep.
My job is to win tomorrow 3 years from now.
Yep.
So that's, and I must admit, I struggle to live in the moment.
Okay.
I'm always like, what's next? What's next? Even as great as the grand final was this year, obviously we had a function back at the club, and the boys enjoyed each other's company on the Monday, and Tuesday there wasn't too much going on. The Wednesday was the Merv Cartwright medal, and then the staff got together and had a feed on the Thursday night, and then I'd already moved on by the Tuesday. I'm into 24 mode or 25 mode. And that's I need to learn to live in the moment a little bit more. And I must admit, every phone call I get at the moment, it's that I haven't caught up with people since the grand final. It's all about the grand final. And in some ways, I've already put that in a compartment and put it to the side, and I've already moved on. But that's, I feel part of my job is, I'm in meetings this morning about a stadium transition in 2025. I'm in meetings later today about soft cap decisions that we're going to make in 2026. My job is about the future. My job's to future-proof the business, which is at opposite ends to Ivan's job, which is to get something done today.
100%. So if I'm the chairman of the Penrith Panthers, I love hearing that because you need someone like that. But as a mate, I want to take you for a beer and live in the moment and just enjoy it.
I struggle to do that.
Because I also know deep in you still is that person that loves the game so much, loves the coaching side so much. And I'd love you to not lose that somehow as a friend here.
Oh, and it becomes, and I suppose in my role now where you're responsible for the salary cap and the contracting and those sorts of things, I feel also part of my job is I have to take the emotion out of it. I can't get emotionally attached to these players.
I know.
which makes it difficult because the reality of the business model that we work in is you can't keep them all.
Yeah.
And as we get more successful as a group, and those players, individual players, receive more individual recognition within the group and representative honours and those sorts of things, and become like they're all very good players. But with that comes a market price that sometimes we can't compete with. So
That must be hard because,
it is. It's very difficult.
well, I know it's hard for the fans and I know it's hard for staff. Like I learned very early on. I remember putting my heart and soul into mentoring and developing and helping players just make their debut. And I love a debut. You know that's my favourite. I love that. But then I've had experiences where a manager, a player agent, then just goes and sells that player because their market value goes up. And I didn't take that too well early in my working career. I didn't take to that too well. But as time's gone on, I understand that agent's just doing his job as well. You can't hold it against the player. You can't get so emotional over it, although that's also my strength working with players is I am very connected with them and they know I would treat them like family. That's what they know I'll do anything possible for them. So it's very hard to say don't get emotional, but also you are like family, you know. It's and so
and I suppose I go back to the times at the Parramatta Eels. I started coaching the Harold Matthews. Well, I started with the under 15s development squad, and then coached Harold Matthews. And I was really fortunate that, like, in that cohort was Matt Keating, Blake Green, Jared Hayne, Chris Nanu, Tim Manor, John Manor. And as I progressed as a coach, as I went up the ranks, I was almost following them in age groups.
yes.
Till a point in time where I'm helping whoever it was, Michael Hagan, with the first grade squad. And
Yes.
there's Folletti Matteo, he's playing first grade, and I've coached him since he was 15 years old. And then I look at this current cohort at Penrith, and although I haven't coached them, like, I can clearly remember one of the first decisions I had to make with Penrith was about Lindsay Smith.
Right.
Like, we started a Jets program, like a junior elite training scheme, which we've used elsewhere. And he was the youngest when I say kid, the youngest player in that group. And everyone was saying, he's 14 years old. He doesn't need to be, I'm thinking, well, trust me, like, I've seen how this works. He's got to be in that group. And Lindsay's a late bloomer. It's taken him a while to find his feet in first grade, but he's an out-and-out champion, So I feel fortunate that, again, I'm in an environment now where, that Jets group had Jerome in it. It had, it had a whole raft of players out of that first grade squad. Yes. And I've been able to progress professionally in our business as they've progressed through to first grade, and I've been able to have the journey with them, so which is pretty cool. So
it is, mate. And you've had the journey with them, but now, like, you're losing some.
And then you need to become.
How does that go? Because a great old coach once said to me, "Don't fall in love with them; they'll break your heart." That's not in a bad way, but you love them so much, but at some stage they're going to need to make a decision that can break your heart.
Sure. And I suppose just for the people listening that, maybe not, avid NRL fans, but the average NRL career at the moment is 44 games. Now, and I use this example all the time. Like, I was fortunate I got to coach Nathan Highmarsh.
Yeah.
He played 330 games.
Yeah.
But I use this example all the time. I also coached Nathan McMillan that played 7 minutes. So Nathan Kalis broke his arm.
2004?
3, maybe.
3.
Yeah.
At Brookvale. I was with you.
So
there you go.
So Nathan Kalis had broken his arm.
Yes.
The window opened.
Yes.
And Nathan played. And a week later, the window closed and Brian picked someone else in the first grade team, and that was the extent of his career.
Yeah.
And he had a great low grade career at Parra, great player, But that's the reality of the business is. The reality of the business is it's very short term for a lot of these players. Statistically, it's 44 games. So 13 of the last 18 players to leave our club have gone on to sign the biggest contracts they've ever signed. And when that happens, you're shitty for a day. Yeah. And then you get over it. Yeah. And then you sort of go, well, I'm really proud that I've had something to do with that young man's journey. And that's the way you got to look at it, you know.
And it would be hard for them to see that in you now because you're the big dog. You're the cutthroat man. It'd be hard for them to see it, but I know it's in you because it's genuine. Like it never leaves you. That's why you start coaching.
I've become sometimes I'll go around to video and I'll walk in and one player, and I won't mention who the player is, he looks at me and goes, "Did someone do something wrong?" No, I'm here to actually give you blokes a rap. I've become sometimes I've become that guy.
Well, they might not know what I know of you.
No,
they might not know that. And I've found as I've got older, I love seeing players I've worked with that have now retired go on to do certain things in their life. I love it. Like,
I'm with you. I see Mark Riddell most weeks at the footy.
Yeah.
And he's got businesses flourishing on the South Coast. He's got
Mark
a radio
Riddell,
presence.
If you're listening, we want him on the show.
I see him all the time, and I just think, how good's that?
I love it. I love seeing him when they're coaching. I love seeing him in business. I love seeing Daniel Mortimer's at Mortimer's Wines. I love seeing Fui Moi Moi on TV. Yesterday I watched Tonga play England, and Fui Moi Moi was the blue shirt. I loved it. I got a message from Christine Inu, who's an assistant coach at Salford. I love seeing these players that we've worked with. Felipe Mateo's now at the Tigers in a well-being space.
Yep.
He's also got a pretty cool podcast that he'll probably ask you to go on now. But yeah, I really love it. And you don't even know, but I loved that about you. You don't know this, but I was working in the full-time NRL team at Parramatta when you were doing all the juniors. We were mates, but seeing you go like this and then overtaking as far as like your career, you made a little change out of coaching. I actually love seeing you do what you do now, to the point I'm going to tell you a story. We were together working with the 21 premiership, but the 22 I wasn't with you.
Yep.
21 you weren't with us because you let other people go to the Sunshine Coast in the bubble year. You put other people before yourself. The following year...
That was the year I was the ball boy?
Yeah, you were the CEO,
that was the year before.
One day you had to watch the balls in COVID on the sideline. But to put it in perspective, only so many people, well, that COVID time, how bad was that about? Only so many people could get paid. You put other people before yourself. I remember that. The following year we're in the Sunshine Coast, you put other people on that plane before yourself. The following year, I'm no longer with you, but I went to that grand final and I sat in a certain spot on my own. I was like a footy nerd. Like I was studying stuff. I saw when they put the first kick pressure on Nathan.
That's Parra.
Yeah, against Parra, and I saw what Nathan did to that guy that put the pressure on. I watched them build into their first try, and I'm sitting behind. I was just a nerd. I was a footy nerd on my own. Ivan asked me down in the sheds later, but I didn't go because I didn't feel a part of that. I did feel a part of it, but I didn't feel like celebrating. Now, I watched you. Back to the story. This is all about you, not me. Back to the story. I watched you, and you got every staff member on the field. I'm talking media staff, office staff, commercial staff. I watched it, and I saw the team celebrate, trophies, cameras everywhere. And you made all of them get on stage for a photo. Once the team was over there celebrating, you got all your staff and you put them on the stage and had a photo with the trophy, and you didn't even get in it. At the start of this episode, you talked about this org chart that you're not even in. And I watched you do this, and I thought, that is the type of boss you want to work for. Everyone in that building, surely that photo is now their favourite photo of all time. Do you remember doing this? Was it deliberate? Did you get your own photo with a trophy?
To answer the first part of your question, yes, it was deliberate because I've got a staff that I would not trade one of them for anyone on the face of the planet. I am so fortunate in my role to come to work every day with the people that I work with. And to answer the second part of the question, yes, I do have a picture of just me, Shane Elford and Jason Wrigley at about, midnight on the sideline where Dylan made the tackle. We actually, because we had the shed Then everyone empties the stadium out, as you would know. And
Yeah.
then we had the boys went out onto the field and carried on a little bit. And at one point, we actually dragged the trophy over to the point on the field where Dylan made the tackle. And there's a picture of just the three of us. So that's the only trophy. I reckon that's the only picture I've got with the trophy, actually. So,
Right.
but it's, I've
What
been
happened
really
to that
fortunate.
office picture? Did you
It's
ever?
not on the wall. It's not on the wall. Like, everyone's got a copy of it. I've got a copy of it, obviously.
Yeah.
I feel it's actually been superseded by another picture, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So,
Yeah.
but I feel like I've been really fortunate. Obviously, I've had a decent run in professional sports. And as crazy as it sounds, obviously, disappointment of 2009 on the field, you would have been there. After that grand final, we got beat by Melbourne. But, for the last couple of years, we have a 2:00 around the office sort of stand-up meeting on a Monday, what's going on, just so everyone knows sort of where they're at. And for the last 18 months, I suppose, and particularly for the last maybe 6 weeks before the semi-finals, I kept saying, everyone, complete contradiction to myself, everyone you've got to squeeze every ounce that you can out of these weeks. We're living in times, the run that this team's going on at the moment. You've got to live every minute. Here's me going, I'm struggling to be in the minute to start off with. And I keep saying, because this won't last forever and this and that. And, and like when I kept saying that in 22, like I'd stand up and say the same thing in 23. And I've got a bunch of office full of kids looking at me going, you're a liar. You said this wouldn't last forever. And it is lasting forever. But I just feel that, for a lot of the people that work in my office, like, how hard it is to get to a grand final, let alone win a grand final. That could be a photo that they look back on 30 years' time with their kids and go, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But you talk about the photo, we've superseded that photo with two other photos. We've actually got, there's a photo with the whole staff, and I've actually jumped in it. You'd be happy, H. I actually jumped in this photo, which was the minor premiership this year.
Yeah.
Because we did it at Penrith Stadium. So the rules are a little bit, we can get more people onto the field. And it's actually a photo of the entire playing group with the kids that came onto the field that day.
Yes.
And the entire staff. And I think the board are in it as well. So it's actually, it's one group photo. But the photo that I think supersedes it, it's in the office at the moment. We haven't done anything with it. It's a picture when Nathan goes up on stage to get his ring and he hugs Royce.
Beautiful.
There's an image, maybe put it on your website. So,
yes.
But he goes along and he shakes Peter's hand, he shakes Andrew's hand, then he gets to Royce and he gives him a big cuddle. So, and you can see Royce's face and you can see Nathan's number on the back of his jersey. It's just, I think it's like in our office anyway, I think it'll go down as an iconic image. So,
well, Royce is iconic. I remember watching that on the TV and just thinking how special that was. But now the way you've said it, we'll definitely need to cut that and put it on one of the edits because that was a special moment.
And the imagery is huge, as you know. Like I look back at, we used to do those videos back in the day, and they're keepsakes.
Yeah.
Like I've still got them on file somewhere. I watch them every now and again, and the imagery around the game now that you can look back on years from now, and go, that's pretty cool.
It's brilliant, and I love what your digital team does. I love what all the digital teams do at different clubs. Some of the stuff Panthers do. There's actually kids that study vision via just Instagram. Yeah. There's actually, I mean, people do it for entertainment, but there's kids that they'll study techniques via pictures, still pictures, or video, and it's a great platform.
And I suppose it's a different learning methodology, if you want to call it that. Like just even the way you coach these days. Yeah. Like the way we coached 20 years ago is not the way you coach now.
I hope your digital team know that you are the original. So you used to make...
No, they would not know.
So we would always do our video reviews, previews. Obviously, in a full-time system, you use a lot of video to learn and teach. But you used to put some videos together, motivational ones before a game. Foo Fighters from memory was your favourite music.
Foo Fighters, yes.
Yeah.
Ben Smith's going to listen to this. He's going to love this. He's going to ring me and say, "Can I get a copy of those DVDs again?"
Now he knows you've still got them.
So yeah, Hindy's the same. Hindy always talks about it when we bump in and have a chat.
Does he?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, they were great times. So I know we need to keep this short because you have to go. So give me a lesson. If you could give advice to any junior coach. Now, for people didn't get it earlier, you coached under 15s all the way through to being an assistant coach for an NRL team.
Yep.
And now there's obviously, we'll ask for advice in the admin space, but advice for a junior coach trying to make their way.
I suppose when I got into it, I didn't play at any level. Like, I was my dad bought me a surfboard when I was very young, and that was the end of team sports for me. Like, I was at the beach every weekend. So,
and you make surfboards, I should.
And
yes. Yeah, that's another episode.
But and I must admit, I coached the Harold Matthews one year, and Jason Taylor was the SG ball. I coached ball, and JT was coaching fleek. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And I always felt that in order to ensure that the players, like I had not the respect, but like the players bought into the fact of what I was coaching was good coaching.
Yep.
My preparation levels were always at a high level.
Okay.
And I can remember, like JT, who, like, when we'd be training at the same venue, and I always used to look at JT and go, like, JT's got the credits in the bank because he's next player. So, like, as a younger player, to go, oh, that's Jason Taylor.
Yes.
Like, there's an automatic.
He just retired as the highest point scorer in history.
He'd only been finished maybe 2 years at that stage, or maybe even a year. But so I always felt like I had to overcompensate.
Okay.
With my preparation. So if there's any, and I'm not saying to people overcompensate, but what I am saying is you need to be prepared. And I go, like, if I think teaching, kids can smell a fraud at 100 metres.
Okay.
Like, kids know.
Yeah.
Kids know, like in the classroom when you're not prepared.
Yeah.
Like, kids know. And I think it's a little bit the same when you're coaching. Like, if you're like thorough and, there's activity and, diversity in your training and those sorts of things, like I think you get the best out of people. But when you start wasting time and sending mixed messages and, those sorts of things within a group of coaches, like players can see it at 100 metres. So.
Well, I asked you to give advice to junior coaches. You've also given advice to junior teachers there.
Yeah.
We have a lot of teachers.
Yep.
My advice is show you care. That's my philosophy, is to show you care and care about preparation. I don't just mean care about the person in a lovey type of way. I mean show what you care about. And it clearly shows, or it doesn't. It shows if you're prepared, or it doesn't show.
Well, that person that you did the podcast with the other day, that Mr. Brian Smith guy, he always used to say to me, they're not interested in how much you know, they're interested in how much you care about them.
That's right. Yeah. So you've given advice to junior coaches, junior teachers. What advice do you have for those players that are trying to make it at the moment, and those parents that are just, in my opinion, maybe a bit too pushy around that junior rep scene? Like, what's a club looking for in a player? To sign a player up at, say, 17 years old, what characteristics are you looking for?
We won't coach effort.
There you go.
I refuse to, when I was.
So you're looking for an effort player?
Yes, but we won't coach it either.
Yeah.
And like, a lot of players can be effort players, but it's effort everywhere. It's not effort on the football field. It's effort. When I say effort at school, like, get to school, get to class. Yeah. Like, we're not all brain surgeons. We understand that. Yeah. But a man that's done his best has done enough. Yeah. It's as simple as that. So yeah, I'm really fortunate. I've got Sam Jones, who's Jimmy Jones, the recruitment manager at the club. Sam does a lot of our development stuff with our younger age group players, and we've got this unique setup where all the lower grades train at the stadium still, and then on the other side of Mulgoa Road is the club and the training facility. And I say to people, one of Sam's biggest job is to decide who goes across Mulgoa Road. Yeah. Everyone's talented. Like, if you're in a representative squad, everyone's talented, but we refuse to coach effort.
So you mean? And
in respect to, you touched on the parents, and I completely get it. I've been through it with my son, who was a basketball player.
Yeah.
We are all so invested in our kids, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I found it really telling. I watched the David Beckham documentary the other day, and whoever was asking the questions in the background spoke to the dad and said, "Oh, do you think you pushed him too hard as a kid?" And the dad said, "No, not at all." And then they cut to David Beckham and they said, "Do you think your dad pushed you too hard as a kid?" And he said, "Yeah, he did."
Did he?
Yeah, so I think as parents, and as I said, I'm one of them. You're one of them. Your kids are thriving at the moment. Just take a breath.
Yeah.
Like enjoy it. Sit back.
Enjoy
Go and sit in the back row of the grandstand and actually enjoy it, rather than sometimes getting caught up in the moment. So.
And you mean, if I know you mean effort to be on time or early, effort to do all the little things off the field, effort to stay back and study the game. You mean all that stuff as well, don't you? You're not just talking chasing kicks, pressuring kicks.
No. It's the things that people don't see. Are the things that, like me personally, that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Like when the whistle goes and everyone's watching the game, we can all see that. When the whistle goes and we stop playing the game, it's all that stuff. It's the player in the change room that cleans up after himself. It's the player that gets dressed in a respectable way that we expect as a club when he leaves the facility.
Yes.
To put himself back out in public with our logo on.
Yeah.
That he's got shoes on. Like they're simple things.
Okay.
Little things, but they're the things that happen. And I'm going to tell this story. It's after the grand final. I haven't got the whole story because I haven't spoken to him. But on the Tuesday night after the grand final, Jerome was driving through a McDonald's getting something to eat late on the Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And there was a carry-on inside the McDonald's, and Jerome went in, and I think the girl behind the counter might have felt a little bit sort of, not threatened, but a little bit under siege by this group of kids that were in the restaurant. And Jerome went in and, "Hey boys, get your bag and beat it," sort of thing, and they left the restaurant. And as it turns out, the girl's father emailed the club just, "Hey, I just think you need to know, Jerome, he's, my daughter this, and he's come in, he solved the problem," and, now... Like that's what happens away from football, and that they're the things that we're always interested in. Is someone carrying themselves away from football the same way they're carrying themselves when we see them at the football? Because it's very easy to put on a facade here and act differently over there. So I think it's a great example of what we're looking for.
Well, I know Ivan has a vision. We did a lot of work on the vision and philosophy and culture, leadership, all that type of stuff. That a lot of listeners listen to this show because of that. But what you've just said there about Jerome is a clear reflection of his own philosophy, how he wants to live his life, but also Ivan's. Ivan had a vision to be a source of community pride, was articulated in a sentence. Back when we talked about Pete Carroll articulating in a sentence what his philosophy was, Ivan wanted to be a source of community pride. Now, there wouldn't be a member of the community that wouldn't be proud of Jerome, what he just did there.
No, you're right.
That
and
would not be proud of. Yeah. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Everyone in the community would be proud of Jerome. Now, he cops a hammering off people. He cops some of the stuff these boys cop from little agendas that have been driven before or people that hate seeing them succeed. I have had that many times I've had to publicly stick up for what great people they are. But you've just said it. You're the CEO of the club and received an email to say, Jerome Luai did this. Like, I love him as a player and as a person. Like, the way they've been portrayed as being arrogant, I hate hearing that.
And I would receive... not half a dozen, but I would receive at least 2 or 3 emails every week, particularly when we travel.
Yeah.
But like when we travel as a team, like when the players travel, I don't necessarily travel with them every week. I could guarantee you like the emails that I get from people in the airport, we played a game at Redcliffe and there was a young boy there, autistic with mum and dad. I'm just trying to think like all the dot points, but, Nathan wasn't playing the game, and Nathan and Ivan, unprompted, stopped and actually, got a picture and signed a jersey. Like as the game is kicking off,
Yeah.
The feedback that I get about our boys, not just your own, but the whole playing group,
That's so good.
is second to none.
That's
you
great.
know? And I'm a big believer. Like, we print those out and stick them up, and
Okay.
I put them in board reports and that sort of thing, because I think they're the things that everyone inside our four walls needs to know. What the conversation, I can't control the conversation outside our four walls, but I can definitely, control it. Well, not control it, but I can definitely spread that conversation within outside.
Awesome. So you've given some good advice. Last one, handling an office type space.
Yes.
And leading an organisation. I know your style. Your style is to build all these people up. You said it before. You said you wouldn't trade any of them for anyone. Handling tough conversations. How do you go with that? It's a topic. Every time I go and speak, it is a topic people want to talk about. Is how to handle tough conversations. How have you gone with this as a leader?
Well, you and I have both been on a little bit of a journey about fear of conflict.
Yeah.
Particularly off the back of the end of the 19 season, where we sort of started that.
Yeah.
And it's what you're saying. There's no hard conversations. You dropped it on someone in my office a couple of weeks ago. So, but it's
an opportunity to strengthen your culture.
Yes, very much so.
So it's not a challenge for me now. It's part of the journey. A hard conversation is not hard. It's an opportunity to strengthen your organisation's culture, and it's also an opportunity to develop even further as a leader.
And I think you're right. It's the one aspect of professional development, I suppose.
Yeah.
That it's very difficult for people to address, and I think part of it maybe because it's in a world where we just text each other.
Yes.
Like you can. I even had someone in my office the other day, and like it was, without going into the situation, it was I'll send him an email, and I said, "No, mate, that's a phone call. If not what are you doing? I'll come around and see you."
Yeah.
It's like I'm a face to face guy. Like
Yeah.
I don't like we all have to email and we all have to text, but if I've got to have those sort of things, I would rather organise a conversation, face to face. But it is I think the hardest thing for a manager to address, because at the end of the day you are responsible for leading and you are responsible for decision making, and those decisions aren't always going to be popular at times. Like hopefully if you're doing a good job they're more popular than they're not, but it's open and honest. I look at it from a again, like working for Brian for such a long time, like the part of the feedback that he always used to give is that they just want you to be honest.
Yes.
Like they want to know because they actually want to get better. I get professional athletes are wired a little bit different to an office employee at times. But you're actually, I say to people all the time, I feel like my job sometimes is, if I'm doing it well, which might sound like a bit of a contradiction, is to actually let people fall over and catch them just before they hit the ground.
Great analogy.
So they learn but don't hurt.
Yeah.
If that
Great
sort
analogy.
of makes sense. And the fear of conflict and the tough conflict, like that's part of it.
And that's been part of your journey, and I love that you've even acknowledged that, because every leader that's listening, they're on their own journey at different stages. Some could be 60 years old, some could be 20. Some might have been put in a leadership position just through position, but they've never been trained as a leader.
Yeah.
And if we could speed up their learnings by listening to a podcast like this, I feel you're in a great place now, because your values, which are lived by all your staff, all your people, all your players, if you have a tough conversation that's aligned with a value, it's no longer tough. No. It's not personal. You're in a position, you've got a great culture, and culture means you've got people living those values. And now those tough conversations, if it's aligned with that, you're just making the organisation stronger.
Yeah. And when those values align, as you would have seen, the group becomes like they manage themselves, they regulate themselves. Yes. It's the ideal, the utopian part of management for me is I'm not the one that does the scolding when it ges to that stage. Not that it gets to that stage too often. It's the group actually self-regulates, and I think that's probably a reflection of where our first grade team is at the moment.
Yes,
they have a standard and they have a set of values that they live by. And if we sort of get a little bit sideways on those at times, they self-regulate. It's not the coaching staff coming over the top or me coming over the top or anything like that. The group and the leadership within the group self-regulate. And I think that's the utopian model that you're looking for. So.
It is, mate. So, favourite moment in sport for you?
Oh, Hayden, put me on the spot. Besides not so much definitely the last grand final.
Yeah.
You touched on the 21 grand final. I was in lockdown in my suburb when that happened, so I watched that game on my lounge with my cattle dog. So, so obviously the 23 grand final. This is gonna out on a limb here, but I surf. It's not so much the favourite moment in I suppose it was in a contest, but there's an iconic image of Tom Carroll doing a top turn at Pipeline in the early 90s on a pink board. Right. And I was a surfer and I had a man crush on Tom Carroll when I was a kid.
Well,
so as soon as you said that, I just had that. And the board itself is in a surf shop in Haleiwa in Hawaii. It's up on the wall. He snapped it. He actually snapped the board later today. But as soon as you said that, I just had this iconic image of Tom Carroll.
Tom Carroll, if you're listening.
It's
man crush.
Oh, heavy.
Let's get him on the show.
Heavy man crush.
Okay, favourite. So we've done favourite sporting moment. Favourite coach to follow from afar that you haven't worked with? Is it Pete Carroll?
Oh, it would have to be Pete Carroll. Yeah, I think he's got a real balance on and a Peter Pan outlook, meaning as I said, he's 72 or 73, but he's vibrant, he's energetic, and he coaches. He's coached the way he thought he should coach, and then I think he's realised that he wanted to coach the way he wanted to coach, and he's had success doing that, which has validated his outlook, which I think is pretty cool.
Besides, obviously, Ivan Cleary, current coach.
Yep.
Best coach that you've followed?
Well, I've been lucky. Obviously, I work for Brian part-time, mind you, not full-time, but part-time. I worked for Brian for nearly 10 years. I'm fortunate that my coaching career has been Brian, Peter Sharp, Rod Reddy, Jason Taylor, Michael Hagan, David Fairley, Steve Kearney, Brad Arthur. Ivan, Daniel. I've had a cavalcade of coaches that I've been really fortunate to work with. The coaches that we've got at Penrith at the moment. Yeah. Peter Wallace, Ben Gardner, Benny Harden, coach of the future. Jason, I did a season with JT at the Tigers in the midst of the 2015. I think JT is a very, very underrated head coach. Obviously he's been at South, he's been at the Tigers, and he's been at Norths, had a couple of fantastic seasons at Norths. Back in the fold at the Dogs moving forward. Cam Serralda, there's another one. So and I feel like I've been lucky. I've had great coaching mentors, and then as I've moved over to administration, obviously, I've been really lucky. Brian, the group CEO, current chairman Peter Graham. So I feel like I've been blessed with mentors, and you and I have spoken about this. I've got a bit of a belief that someone should be mentoring you, and you should be mentoring someone all the time. All the time as you get older. So,
besides Ivan Cleary, best hire you've ever done?
Hayden.
Did he just say that?
Hayden, I'm going to.
Did he just say that?
Totally unprompted. I will say this, H. I got to work with you at the Eels, and I could see what Brian always saw in you in respect to everyone can just come at it, but sometimes you can come at it from a different angle, which gets a much better result at times. I was fortunate to get you back onto the staff here at Penrith. I'm just trying to think. We didn't work anywhere in the middle there, did we?
No, we didn't.
Parramatta Penrith. So get you back on staff here at Penrith at a point in time in our evolution where I felt like what you brought to the group was very much part of why we were successful at that point in time and our success now. So we've worked on and off 20 odd years now, and I can see why Robbo has got you doing the role that you're going to do at the Roosters next year. I love the fact that you come at it from a different angle to everyone else, and I think that's one of your strengths, mate. And you touched on it. It's the players that you have coached, and I watch you interact when you bump into Kalis or Hindy or those guys, and it's like that bloke you grew up with that you could not
Yeah.
talk to each other for 3 years and you just pick the conversation up at exactly the same point. And clearly, the Benny Smiths of the world and gurus and those guys. And
Yeah.
clearly, when I see them interact with you, clearly there's a level of respect and what you have been able to do for them in their professional journey. And I don't think that can be underestimated, mate. So
Well, this episode is about you, but thank you for that.
that's all right.
I was going best hire. One topic I wanted to, but I won't because we've run out of time. I wanted to go down the people struggle sacking people.
I've got
It's
a little
very
bit more.
hard.
If you want to keep
I
going.
know you have to go. So I wanted to go down hiring and firing as a leader. But anyway, thank you so much, mate. That
Fire
was so
fast,
good.
hire slow, H.
Say that again.
Fire fast and hire slow.
There you go. Well, we touched on it then.
So
If you have to do it, get it done.
it's tough. It's a bit like a player sometimes. Like David Williams was at Para,
Yeah,
and we just couldn't get him going, and he went to Manly and played for Australia.
he did. The
So
Wolfman.
and sometimes you can have someone in your organisation that's just a square peg in a round hole, and sometimes them moving on or you like getting to that awkward point where you have to make that decision that they can't be part of it moving forward.
Yeah.
You can bump into them 3 years down the track, and they are absolutely flourishing.
Yes.
So yeah, it's not it's a difficult part of professional life, but it's actually a part that sometimes can be very rewarding for the individual.
Well, thanks so much. I'm sure the listeners understand why you are enjoying so much success right now. We've got to know you at a level that I don't think anyone publicly does because you stay behind the scenes.
And that's
And
exactly
I'm
how I
sure
like
you're
it.
about to go back there, but you've given us some gold there, mate. I really, really appreciate your time and your friendship, and congratulate you on everything that's happening.
Thanks, mate. And congratulations on what you're doing here, mate. It's fantastic. I look forward to listening to some more. So
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
cheers.